The galactic empire stretched across thousands of star systems, its banners flying on worlds of every color and climate. From frozen moons to gas giants wrapped in endless storms, the empire believed it had seen and mastered all things. No frontier frightened them anymore. Yet, in the outer reaches of the Orion Arm, whispers traveled through the quiet channels of deep space traders. These whispers spoke of a small, blue-green world tucked away in a modest star system. It had a single sun, one moon, and oceans so vast they could swallow continents. Its name, spoken in many alien tongues, was Earth. But no one spoke of it with the excitement of discovery. They spoke of it with fear. The warnings were always the same. Don't go to Earth. It's a trap. One such warning reached the Imperial Capitol through an old merchant named Talren, a four-eyed wanderer who had seen more jump gates than most admirals. Standing before the Imperial Council, his voice trembled. "Your Majesty, I beg you leave that system untouched. Ships vanish. There. Crews come back. Changed. They remember things that never happened. They smile when there is nothing to smile about. It is not a place for conquest. It is a place that takes something from you." The council chambers erupted in quiet chuckles. The Emperor, Kolvros IV, was not a man who believed in ghost stories. Traders' tales, he called them. To him, every new world was an opportunity to expand the Empire's reach. Fear was for the weak. Still, others added their voices. A delegation from the Valerie Confederation arrived days later, their silver skin gleaming under the council lights. Their leader, Envoy Yezra, spoke firmly. "We do not trade near Sol. We do not map it. For hundreds of years, we have kept away. It is not war that waits there, it is something worse. The humans will welcome you, yes, and that is the danger. They will make you want to stay." But to the Imperial Admiralty, this sounded like nothing more than superstition dressed in diplomacy. Admiral Theric, a towering reptilian officer, addressed the Emperor. "Your Majesty, if these humans truly hold power, then they should be brought under Imperial command. And if they are weak, then the Empire gains another world. Either way, we win." The decision was made. Orders spread through the fleet, like fire in dry grass. An expeditionary force would be sent 20 ships, strong to chart Earth's system, assess its resources, and, if necessary, prepare it for annexation. The commander chosen for this task was Varric Soren, a decorated officer known for his calm precision. He accepted the mission without hesitation, though in private, he wondered why so many races spoke the same warning about a single planet. Days before departure, the Emperor granted him an audience. The meeting was brief. "Do not let old tales cloud your judgment," Commander Kolvros said. "Bring me the truth, and if there is treasure there, bring that too." Varric saluted. "It will be done." The fleet departed under the watch of thousands, who gathered in orbital stations to see the ships vanish into the dark. Their hulls gleamed in the starlight, carrying the pride of the Empire into the unknown. The first leg of the journey was uneventful. The ships leaped through gates, crossed interstellar voids, and sailed past dying stars. It was only after they entered the Sol system that the strangeness began. The navigators reported that their distances were off. Objects seemed closer than the instruments showed. A planet on the far side of the sun appeared on sensors, minutes before it should have, and then came the first disappearance. A small probe was sent ahead, toward the third planet Earth. It should have taken 6 minutes to reach the orbital marker. It never arrived. The tracking data simply ended, as if the probe had stepped out of reality. A second probe was launched. It returned. But something was wrong. Its onboard recorder played faint sounds, laughter, soft and warm, in a language none of them recognized. The crew grew restless. Some laughed nervously. Others muttered about the trader's warnings. Commander Varric ordered the flagship to send a brief status report back to the Imperial capital. The cum officer's voice was steady until the very last sentence. Fleet, in good health. Entering Earth's orbit in the transmission cutoff. There was no static, no distortion, just silence. And in that silence, a single word slipped through, carried on a voice that was not the cum officer's. Smiling, Varric stared at the dead channel. His second-in-command asked what they should do. The commander looked toward the planet below. The blue ocean sparkled under white clouds, and the landmasses stretched like welcoming arms. "We continue," Varric said at last. But in his chest, a small unease began to grow. Unease that the warnings might have been more than just fear. Far below, on the surface of Earth, someone or something was already waiting for them. The fleet sailed into the Sol system, like silver arrows cutting through a calm sky. The star burned bright at its center, golden light spilling over the ship's hulls. The third planet, Earth, grew larger with every passing minute, a glowing sphere of blue oceans, white clouds, and green-brown continents. Commander Varric stood on the bridge of the flagship Imperial Dawn, his hands clasped behind his back. The view before him was serene, almost beautiful. For a moment, he understood why some species spoke of this world in hushed voices, not because of fear, but because it was impossible to look away. But beauty was never enough to stop an empire. Range to target, Varric asked. 30,000 kilometers in closing, replied Navigator Lore, his voice tight. Orbit insertion in 9 minutes. Yet even as he spoke, the readings flickered. The numbers shifted strangely, as though the distance to Earth was changing every second. Gravitational anomaly, Varric asked. No, sir. The planet's position is stable. It's our perception of the distance that keeps adjusting, Lore said, glancing at the commander nervously. Outside, the smaller scout ships fanned out, their sensors scanning the planet's atmosphere. Some detected storms, others reported clear skies in the same locations. It was as if Earth showed each ship a different face. Then, a voice crackled over the fleet-wide channel. It was Lieutenant Rivas from the scout ship Luminous Path. Sir, I'm picking up transmissions. Not random noise. There. Speaking Imperial Standard. Varric frowned. Play it. Soft, warm voices filled the bridge. Speaking perfect. Imperial. The words were simple. Welcome home. A chill ran down Varric's spine. Where is it broadcasting from? Everywhere, sir, Rivas replied. The signal is coming from all points on the planet at once. The cum officer tried to trace it, but each time she locked onto a source, it vanished and appeared somewhere else. As the fleet descended closer to orbit, strange sensations began to ripple through the crews. On the Imperial Dawn, weapons officer Kara felt as if someone was standing just behind her, whispering her childhood nickname, a name she hadn't heard in decades. When she turned, there was no one there. On another ship, a pilot found himself humming a tune he didn't know. Moments later, the ship's AI identified it as an old Earth lullaby. Varric kept his eyes on the planet, forcing himself to remain calm. His training told him that all of this was psychological warfare, tricks to make the fleet hesitate. But part of him knew this was something else, something subtle. Commander, Lore said suddenly, we're receiving a visual transmission. From Earth. Yes, sir. The bridge lights dimmed as the main display lit up. The image was simple, a wide green meadow under a bright blue sky. In the center stood a human woman, wearing clothing that seemed centuries out of date. She smiled warmly at the camera. Commander Varric Sorin, she said in perfect Imperial Standard, we've been expecting you. Gasps broke out across the bridge. Varric's eyes narrowed. How do you know my name? The woman tilted her head slightly, as though amused by the question. We know all our visitors. We always have. Before Varric could reply, the transmission ended, replaced once again by the silent image of Earth spinning below. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Could it be a deep scan of our databases? The security chief suggested. Maybe they've already hacked our systems. No, the comm officer said quietly. The transmission wasn't digital. It was analog. Old, very old. The fleet entered low orbit. From here, cities could be seen sparkling at night on the dark side of the planet. Some were small clusters of light, others vast glowing webs stretching across continents. But even in the deepest wilderness, a faint glimmer would appear, as if every corner of the planet was watching. Varric ordered a standard orbital survey. Probes descended into the atmosphere, sending back images of bustling cities, quiet forests, rolling oceans, and people waving up at the sky, as though they could see the ships directly. One probe transmitted a brief close-up of a child holding a small wooden carving. The carving was unmistakable. It was Varric's own face, down to the scar on his left cheek. Varric's breath caught. The probe feed cut out before he could order more scans. On the bridge, no one spoke for several seconds. The silence was heavy. Finally, Varric said, "Prepare the delegation. We're going down." His officers hesitated, but obeyed. The shuttles were readied, and the first landing coordinates were set. As the fleet drifted above Earth, the strange transmissions continued. Now a mix of human voices and alien ones, all blending together in harmony. The words repeated over and over. "You've come back to us." Varric didn't know what they meant, but he was beginning to suspect that the warnings they had ignored were not just fear, they were truth, far below. On the surface, the shuttle's descent through Earth's atmosphere was calm, almost too calm. Commander Varric sat in the forward seat, watching the clouds roll past the viewport. Soft sunlight spilled across the hull, and for a moment, it felt less like an invasion and more like returning to a long-forgotten home. The landing site had been chosen for its open space, a wide meadow near a river, far from any dense city. Yet, as the shuttle lowered toward the ground, Varric saw hundreds of humans gathered there, standing in neat lines, smiling up at them. None of them carried weapons. "Did they know our coordinates?" the pilot whispered. "They shouldn't have," Varric replied, his voice low. But deep down, he already suspected the answer. The shuttle touched down with a gentle hiss. The ramp lowered, and the warm air of Earth rolled in, carrying scents unlike anything the crew had ever smelled: green grass, blooming flowers, and something else they couldn't name, but which made them feel at ease. Varric stepped out first, flanked by his security team. The crowd did not move, did not cheer, did not shout. They simply stood and looked at them as though they had been waiting for this moment for years. Then, the woman from the earlier transmission stepped forward. She looked exactly the same dress, same smile, same calm eyes. "Commander Varric Soren," she said, her voice carrying clearly, without any device. "Welcome to Earth." Varric studied her closely. Her posture was relaxed, but her gaze was sharp, as if she could see far deeper than his uniform and rank. "You know who I am," Varric said. "How?" "We have always known," she replied. "You have been in our stories for generations." The commander's second-in-command, Lieutenant Mara, frowned. "That's impossible. We've never been here before." The woman's smile widened slightly, but she didn't argue. Instead, she extended her hand. "Walk with me." Varric hesitated, then nodded. His guard stepped back but stayed alert. Together, they walked along the edge of the meadow, the crowd parting silently to let them pass. As they moved, Varric noticed something unsettling. The humans in the crowd were not all the same age, yet their expressions carried the same peaceful. Children, elders, farmers, and merchants, all looking at him like they knew him. "You've come a long way," the woman said softly, "and you carry many questions." "Questions that need answers," Varric replied. "Why did other worlds warn us to stay away? Why do you know my name?" The woman's gaze drifted toward the river. Because those who came before you never truly left. Part of them stayed. Part of them became us. Varric's jaw tightened. You're talking about assimilation? Not as you understand it, she said. Nothing is taken by force. We offer connection, a bond that cannot be broken. Most who feel it choose to remain. They stopped near the riverbank. The water reflected the sunlight in ripples, and for a brief moment, Varric thought he saw faces in the reflection, faces that looked like his crew, smiling up at him from beneath the surface. He stepped back instinctively. What is this place? A beginning, she said simply, and sometimes an ending. Lieutenant Mara approached, looking uneasy. Commander, you should see this. She led him back toward the shuttle, where the science officer was holding a small wooden carving, a perfect replica of the Imperial Dawn. Where did you get this? Varric asked. The science officer pointed to a young human boy in the crowd. The boy smiled and said, in flawless Imperial standard, I made it for you. Varric stared at him. How do you know our language? The boy shrugged. We've always known. The air around them felt thicker now, as if the world itself was leaning in to listen. Varric felt a strange warmth in his chest, not heat from the sun, but something more personal, like the feeling of stepping into a familiar room after years away. The woman spoke again, her voice soft but carrying far. You've come as visitors. You will leave as family. That is why they warned you, because once you belong here, you will never want to go. Varric met her gaze. And if we choose to leave? Her smile did not fade. Then you will leave, but part of you will remain, always. A wind swept through the meadow, and for a moment, the tall grass moved in patterns that almost looked like words. Varric turned toward the shuttle, his mind heavy with thoughts he couldn't untangle. The crew boarded again, but no one spoke during the ascent back to orbit. Only when the meadow disappeared from view did Lieutenant Mara whisper, Sir, I think I understand why they called it a trap. Varric looked down at the carving of the Imperial Dawn still in his hand. For some reason, it felt wrong to put it down. Far below, the woman stood in the meadow, watching the shuttle rise. She whispered something in a language the crew did not know, but the wind carried the tone clearly. It was the sound of welcome. The fleet's return to orbit was quiet, but the quiet felt different now, heavier, like the silence after an unexpected truth. Commander Varric stood at the viewport of the Imperial Dawn, watching Earth turn slowly below. The planet's blues and greens seemed richer than before, almost glowing. He told himself it was only the sunlight, but deep inside, he felt it calling to him. Reports from the other ships began to arrive. At first, they were routine. Fuel levels, atmospheric scans, supply inventories. But soon, a different kind of message appeared. Short notes about crew behavior, officers requesting more time planetside, engineers asking to study human architecture directly, pilots volunteering for unnecessary shuttle runs to the surface. Lieutenant Mara brought the latest file to Varric. Sir, it's getting strange. Some crew members are changing how they're speaking in ways they didn't before. Using human idioms, humming Earth melodies. One officer has started sketching Earth landscapes in perfect detail, but he swears he's never seen those places. Varric rubbed his temples. Could be psychological. The planet's atmosphere might have a subtle effect. But when he looked around the bridge, he saw it too. The navigator's eyes lingered too long on the planet. The comm officer wore a faint smile for no reason. Even Mara seemed softer somehow, her voice quieter, as if Earth's calm had settled into her. That night, Varric couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he dreamed of the meadow. In the dream, the woman from the surface stood waiting, her hand outstretched, her voice gentle. You've always belonged here. He would wake with his heart racing, unsure if the dream had been his own or something placed there by the next day. The pull had grown stronger. The Imperial Dawn's science team reported that their navigation systems were malfunctioning in a peculiar way. Every plotted course eventually curved back toward Earth, no matter the intended destination. It's like the system refuses to acknowledge leaving, the chief engineer said. I've never seen anything like it. On the fleet's outer ring, a small shuttle attempted to break orbit and head for the jump gate. The pilot's voice over comms was calm at first, then puzzled, then strangely happy. An hour later, the shuttle reappeared in formation with the fleet. When Varric hailed them, the pilot sounded confused. Sir, I didn't leave. I've been here the whole time. Mara leaned closer to the commander. Sir, I think this is exactly what the traitors meant by trap. That afternoon, the woman from the meadow appeared again, not on the surface, but on every screen in the fleet. She stood in a sunlit room, her expression warm and knowing. Your people are welcome here, she said. You need only choose to stay. Her voice carried through the ships without static, without delay. Crew members stopped what they were doing to listen, their faces softening. You have traveled far, she continued. But travel is only the beginning. Here, you will find rest. Here, you will find your place. Varric shut down the transmission, but its echo lingered in the air. Some officers seemed disappointed. It was gone. By the next shift, morale reports took on a strange tone. Instead of speaking of the mission, crew members spoke of home, and they meant Earth. During a routine check, Mara found Varric in the observation deck, staring down at the planet. You're feeling it too, aren't you? She asked, softly. He didn't answer immediately. It's like gravity, but inside your mind, he admitted at last. The more you fight it, the more it pulls. Maybe the only way to resist is to leave, she suggested. He shook his head. If we could leave, we already would have. That evening, the crew requested permission to hold a cultural exchange aboard the flagship. Varric allowed it, hoping it would boost morale. Humans from the surface arrived in small groups, bringing music, food, and stories. The moment they stepped aboard, the atmosphere of the ship shifted. Laughter became easier, tensions faded, and even the most disciplined officers seemed to relax completely. Varric watched as one of his engineers shared a meal with an elderly human woman, their heads bent close together as they spoke. He didn't understand the language she used, yet he could see the connection in their eyes. When the event ended, many crew members quietly asked to visit the surface again. Some didn't even frame it as a request. They spoke as if it was inevitable. Later, alone in his quarters, Varric looked at the wooden carving of the Imperial Dawn. It felt heavier now, as if it carried the weight of a choice he had not yet made. He set it down on the desk, but somehow it seemed to watch him. Far below, Earth turned slowly in the dark, its cities glowing like constellations. And somewhere, the woman from the meadow whispered into the night, "They will stay." Days passed, though time aboard the Imperial Dawn began to feel strange. Hours blended together, and Varric often found himself forgetting whether an event had happened yesterday or a week ago. The fleet's scientists requested permission to conduct deeper scans of Earth, hoping to find an explanation for the unusual pull the planet seemed to have on them. Varric agreed, though he wasn't sure if the truth would bring relief or something worse. The first scans were normal. Mountains, rivers, cities. But then the deep penetration sensors lit up with strange readings. "Commander," said Dr. Halrin, the lead scientist, his voice tight with disbelief. "There's something beneath the surface." Varric moved to the console. Something. Be specific. The readings showed vast structures buried deep underground, stretching for hundreds of kilometers. They were perfectly geometric, straight lines, perfect circles, impossible symmetry, and older than any human civilization by tens of thousands of years. "They're not natural," Halrin whispered, "and they're far older than the humans. Whatever built them was here long before." Varric felt a coldness settle in his chest. Why haven't the humans mentioned this? The science team sent probes to investigate, but the data was incomplete. Every time a probe descended into the underground network, the signal weakened. One probe returned only a single audio file, a low, steady pulse, almost like a heartbeat. The strangest part was that the pulse matched the rhythm of Varric's own heartbeat. That night, Varric was awakened by a vivid dream. He was standing in a dark chamber far below the earth, the walls lined with glowing patterns. The woman from the meadow was there, but now her eyes were brighter, almost luminous. She placed her hand on the wall, and the patterns shifted to form, words in imperial standard. "You are already one of us." He woke with a start, his heart pounding. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he was still dreaming. The next morning, Mara reported that several crew members had begun drawing similar glowing patterns in their notebooks without knowing why. Others claimed to have heard faint whispers when alone, always in their own native languages. Varric decided to confront the humans directly. He and Mara took a shuttle to a human research facility near the base of a mountain range. They were welcomed without hesitation, the human staff smiling as if they had been expecting them. One scientist, a tall man with calm eyes, led them deep into the facility. He showed them holographic maps of the underground structures. "These chambers have been here since before the first human walked the earth," the man said. "They are part of what we call the root." "The root?" Mara asked. "It connects all who choose to be part of it. Those who join never truly leave. The root remembers." Varric crossed his arms. "And what happens to those who don't join?" The man smiled faintly. "No one has ever truly refused." As they walked back toward the shuttle, Varric noticed something unsettling. Some of the human researchers had eyes that seemed familiar. Shapes, colors, or even expressions that reminded him of alien races from worlds far beyond Sol. It was as if pieces of other species lingered in them. When they returned to orbit, Halrin pulled Varric aside. "Sir, the underground structures, they're not just old. The material they're made from doesn't exist anywhere else we've searched in the galaxy. And it's still active, sending out signals every few minutes." "Signals to where?" Varric asked. Halrin's face was pale. "To us. The frequency matches our own fleet communications, but we never transmitted it." That night, Varric walked alone to the observation deck. Earth turned slowly below, its lights blinking like stars. He found himself whispering, "What are you?" And, in the quiet, a voice, soft, unmistakable, answered in his mind. Home. The days in orbit passed like soft waves, pulling the fleet deeper into Earth's quiet gravity, not the physical pull, but something deeper. Commander Varric had stopped marking time by the ship's clocks. He noticed others had too. Conversations no longer began with "when we leave," but with "when we go back down." The warning they had ignored now felt like a shadow at the edge of his thoughts, always there, but fading every time Earth came into view. One morning, Varric woke to find his reflection different. The scar on his left cheek looked lighter, almost healed. His eyes seemed brighter, and for a moment, he thought they carried a faint blue hue, like the oceans below. He told himself it was the light in his quarters, on the bridge. Mara greeted him with a calm smile. "Sir, we've lost long range, comes entirely. The signal won't pass beyond the system. Equipment failure." She shook her head. "No, the system itself doesn't let the signal leave. It's like the transmissions are swallowed the moment they're sent." Varric stared at the comm panels. The Empire couldn't hear them anymore. They were on their own. Reports from other ships painted a stranger picture. Officers and crew were adopting human speech patterns. Some began sharing dreams of standing in the same green meadow, even though they hadn't set foot on the surface. A pilot claimed he could feel the planet's weather without looking at the forecast. It wasn't just the mind. Subtle physical changes appeared too. Faster healing from injuries, brighter skin, a steady, almost synchronized heartbeat among all crew members. Dr. Helren, pale and exhausted, came to Varric's quarters with a data pad. "Sir, I've been tracking our biological readings. There's no doubt now the crew's DNA is changing." Varric's voice was low. "Changing into what?" Halrin hesitated. "Into something closer to them." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Varric said, "This is no accident. This is what Earth does." That evening, Varric went alone to the observation deck. The planet hung below him, glowing in the dark, its lights blinking like a heartbeat. And then, without warning, the woman from the meadow appeared beside him. He didn't hear a door open. She was simply there, her calm presence filling the room. "You've seen it now," she said softly. "You know what we are." Varric turned to face her. "You're changing us. You've been changing everyone who comes here." She nodded. "Not against your will. The change is an offering. You can refuse it, but why would you?" "Because it means losing ourselves," he said. Her eyes softened, almost with pity. "You are not losing yourself, Commander. You are finding the part of you that was always meant to be here." Varric stepped closer to the glass, watching the curve of the planet. "This isn't just about my crew. You've been waiting for us. For the Empire." "Yes," she said without hesitation. "We've waited for many. Some never came. Some came and never left. You are always going to arrive, Varric. We have known your face for centuries." His chest tightened. "How? How could you know that?" She looked at him, her voice quiet and certain. "Because you've been here before." The words hit him like a silent shockwave. A strange rush of images filled his mind, standing on a cliff above a vast ocean, feeling the wind of this very world, but wearing no uniform, no rank, laughing with people whose faces he couldn't recall, yet knowing they were dear to him. He gasped and stepped back. The woman smiled gently, as though watching a child take a first step. "You remember," she whispered. The visions faded, but the feeling remained, a sense of belonging so deep it frightened him. Mara's voice crackled over the breaking the moment. "Commander, you need to see this. The fleet's navigation systems, they've all reset to a single destination, Earth's surface. Every ship, every shuttle." The woman met his eyes one last time. "It's time to choose, Varric. The longer you wait, the harder it will be to leave." Then, as suddenly as she had appeared, she was gone. Varric stood alone on the observation deck, staring down at the world that was slowly, quietly, making him one of its own. The order to leave came not from logic, but from instinct, the thin, fading thread of duty still left in Commander Varric's mind. If they stayed longer, he feared there would be no leaving at all. The fleet prepared for departure in quiet efficiency, but even in their movements, Varric saw hesitation. Crew members packed their stations slowly, some lingering by the observation windows for long moments, gazing at Earth as if saying goodbye to an old friend. Lieutenant Mara reported from the bridge. "All ships ready for jump, sir. Navigation locked on Imperial space." But Varric's gut twisted. The navigation had been fighting them for days, always pulling back toward the planet. Still, he gave the command. "Engage, jump." One by one, the fleet's drives activated. The stars stretched into streams of light. The blue-green glow of Earth faded behind them. Yet the relief Varric expected never came. Minutes into the jump, strange readings appeared on every screen. The coordinates were shifting mid-flight, slowly but surely. They weren't heading to the Empire anymore. "Correct course," Mara ordered, her voice sharp. The helm obeyed, but the system simply recalculated the same altered route. Varric's stomach sank. "Where are we going?" The navigator's voice trembled. "Sir, it's not a location in our charts, but there are colonies there. Human colonies." The word human settled over the bridge like a shadow. Hours later, the fleet emerged from jump into a star system they had never seen. Yet as soon as the first transmissions came in, the unease deepened. The signals were in Imperial Standard, spoken in familiar voices. A face appeared on the main screen, a traitor Varric had known years ago, smiling warmly. But there was something different in his eyes. Something that made Varric's chest tighten. "Commander," the traitor said, "welcome home." Varric didn't respond immediately. The crew around him stared, some with recognition, others with silent longing. The traitor spoke again. "We are part of the Circle now. You've met them, haven't you? On Earth?" Mara stepped forward. "What is the Circle?" "It is everything," the traitor replied. "Every world that has joined, every mind that has touched the root. You will understand soon enough. You're already changing." Varric's hand gripped the edge of the console. "We didn't come here to join anything. We came to return to the Empire." The traitor only smiled. "And yet, here you are." Over the next days, the fleet moved through the human colonies. The pattern was always the same. The people welcomed them as if they had always been part of the same family. There were no barriers, no borders, no suspicion, and slowly, Varric saw his crew relax in ways they never had before. Tension faded. Laughter became common. Friendships formed in hours, not months. But something else was happening too. Imperial insignias were quietly removed from uniforms. Crew members stopped addressing him as commander and began using his name. It was subtle at first, but it grew. One evening, Mara came to his quarters. She didn't salute. She simply stood there, her expression calm but certain. "Varric," she said softly, "maybe the Empire isn't home anymore." Her words struck him harder than any blow. He wanted to argue, to remind her of their duty, but the truth was, he wasn't sure what that duty even meant now. That night, he dreamed again of the meadow. The woman was there, standing among the tall grass. She looked at him and said only one sentence: "The return is never to where you came from. It is to where you belong." When he woke, he didn't feel lost. He felt anchored. The next morning, the fleet held a meeting. No one mentioned the Empire. Instead, they spoke of new routes, new worlds, all connected by something unseen. The decision was unspoken but clear. They would not attempt to return. As the ships prepared to depart the system, a trader delivered a small package to Varric. Inside was a smooth stone, carved with the same glowing patterns he had seen in his dream. He held it in his palm, feeling its faint warmth. He realized the trader's warnings had been true. Earth was a trap, not of chains or prisons, but of belonging so deep it rewrote who you were. And Varric was no longer sure he wanted to escape. Months passed since the fleet had left Earth's orbit, yet it felt as if the planet's presence followed them everywhere. Commander Varric no longer woke with the urgency of a soldier bound to orders. He woke with the steady calm of someone who had found his place, even if that place was no longer under the Empire's banner. The human colonies welcomed the fleet completely, and slowly, the line between visitor and resident blurred. Crew members bought homes, started learning local customs, even planned to stay permanently. The word Empire was rarely spoken anymore, but news still traveled, and one day a transmission arrived from Imperial space. It was from Emperor Calvros himself, his voice sharper than Varric remembered. "Commander Soren, your mission is overdue. Return at once and report your findings." Varric listened in silence, then played the message for his senior officers. Some shifted uncomfortably, but no one suggested obeying the command. Mara broke the silence. "If we return, we'll be bringing more than a report. We'll be bringing the Circle." It was true. Earth had not been a destination, it had been a beginning. Through the hidden route beneath its surface, a network of minds stretched across worlds and species, carrying unity in a way the Empire had never achieved. And Earth's influence was spreading. In the months since leaving, the fleet had visited 10 worlds, and on every one, they found signs of it. glowing carvings in the old root language. People speaking in perfect imperial standard, though they had never met outsiders, and the same strange, peaceful calm that had first unsettled the fleet. One evening, while standing on the balcony of a human-built tower, Varric saw a familiar figure in the crowd below, the woman from the meadow. She was unchanged, her eyes holding the same warmth as the day they met. "You're still watching me?" he said, when they spoke in the quiet of the tower's upper floor. She smiled. "Not watching, walking beside you. You've always been one of us. It only took time for you to remember." Varric leaned on the railing, looking out at the city lights. "The Emperor wants me back." "And what do you want?" she asked gently. He thought for a long moment. "I want what the Empire could never give its people. Real unity, not control, not fear, just belonging." "Then you already have it," she said, the next day. The fleet set course for the imperial capital, but not to return as servants. They came as messengers. Their journey back took weeks, and in that time, the Circle's quiet presence grew stronger. More crew members joined it fully, their thoughts carrying warmth and calm into every conversation. When the fleet finally arrived in imperial space, the reaction was immediate. The capital's ships moved to escort them, their weapons ready, but the tension faded quickly when the first transmissions were exchanged. Crew members spoke with imperial officers as if they were old friends, even those they had never met. Within days, the Emperor himself visited the flagship. He stepped aboard with suspicion in his eyes, but when he saw the way the crew greeted him, speaking with a strange mix of familiarity and respect, his guard weakened. Varric led him to the observation deck. Below them, the Imperial homeworld shone in the dark. "What have you brought back with you, Commander?" the Emperor asked. Varric didn't answer with words. Instead, he placed the smooth carved stone from earth into the Emperor's hands. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. The Emperor's eyes widened, and in that moment, Varric saw something shift in him, the hard edges of power softening. "This," Varric said quietly, "is not conquest, it's connection, and it will change everything." From that day, the Empire began to change. Borders became less guarded. Trade became freer. Worlds that had once feared imperial rule began speaking of joining willingly, not because they had been forced, but because they had been welcomed, and Earth remained at the quiet center of it all, never claiming the title of ruler, yet shaping the galaxy more deeply than any throne could. In time, the old empire was no longer spoken of. A new network of worlds rose in its place, a unity without chains, guided by the silent heartbeat of the root. For Varric, the meadow from his dreams never faded. Sometimes, in moments of quiet, he would close his eyes and feel the sun on his face, the grass beneath his hands, and hear the woman's voice. The trap was never to hold you. The trap was to make you free. And he knew then, as he had always known, that the warning had been true, but it had never been a threat. It had been an invitation.